Welcome, dear listeners, to the Speak and Flow podcast, where we dive into unique strategies and experiences to help you and your team unlock the power of your voice to achieve maximum potential and flow, even in high stakes situations. Today, we have Andrea Bumstead. She's an amazing leader. She's a vice president of customer success, specializing in organizational transformation. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Melinda.
I am so excited. And before the call, you shared about your journey toward being a VP of customer success. I'd love for you to share that fascinating story. What was that defining moment that told you this is what you're meant to be?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think without going into too much detail, I actually started my career in marketing and sales, which I really loved. In fact, I call them my second loves all the time, because they hold a very special place in my heart. But I think for me, I really realized that I value relationships and long-term relationships. And so the ability to have that with customers, I value just a little bit more than sales. There's still things that I love about sales, but what really won me over in customer success was the long-term relationships that I could build with customers.
I love that. And so that's what made you decide to what's the difference? Like, so just having the long term versus the short term and the
Yeah,
relation.
I mean, sales tends to be a little bit more transactional,
Yeah.
unless it's an enterprise sale. You basically get the customer in the door, you convince them to use your solution, and then you pass them on.
Right.
Whereas customer success, I mean, you can have the same customer for, I mean, ideally 5, 10, or more
Yeah.
years, right? And so you get to know that customer on a much deeper level. You're engaged with them for significantly longer. So that's the piece that I really liked about post-sales and customer success in particular.
I love that. And that's why companies bring you on to develop that journey, the customer success journey. And you've helped companies scale quite a bit from 15 million all the way to 50 million. And so, what has been your key to success in communication, do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. Really, well, if I kind of go back, at one point in my career, I decided to hire an executive coach.
Mm.
So it was when I was a director. I knew that I wanted to move into being a vice president. I really wasn't sure how to get there. Um, but I knew that what had got me to being a director wasn't going to get me to a VP. Um,
Mhm.
and one of the key things that I learned from my coach is that really the difference between a director and a VP and a VP and a chief customer officer or chief customer officer and the CEO, apart from experience, the one difference is how they communicate. And that's something that always stuck with me. And through her coaching program, I really started to reflect on how I communicate.
Mm.
Um, and as I sort of did the hard work to get to know myself, to go through her coaching program, I noticed a really big difference in my communication style. And so I would say that's been my one sort of key to success as I've moved sort of up the ranks,
Wow.
is communication.
Wow. I love that. And so let's break that down. What was it like communicating back then, do you think?
Yeah, I cringe a little bit at that question because I wasn't the best communicator back then. And I mean, I thought I was a good communicator. Like I would get in a room and I would always speak up and I would have an opinion. And I took a lot of ownership, but I think why I cringe is that communication came from a very insecure place.
Yeah.
Uh, Came from a place of like, feeling like I needed to prove myself, feeling like I had to speak up in meetings, that I should speak up in meetings, or, all that internal self-talk of like, you're the leader of this team, you should have an opinion.
Yeah.
And so that's why I cringe a little bit because it didn't come from a really great sort of authentic place. It came from a place of almost like imposter syndrome. Like I don't belong here. I don't deserve to be here, and I constantly need to prove otherwise.
Yeah, it's so fascinating because yes, where we're speaking from, who are we being? Yeah, if it's from insecurity, it could tend to like overcompensate, overspeak, over communicate, speak just to prove something, speak just to speak, because like you mentioned, you're driven from I need to lead and I need to, and so that means I have to have an opinion.
Hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say one of the things that I learned is that it wasn't serving me. It wasn't actually working. Um, I wasn't being valued as a leader. I wasn't being valued for my opinions. I was anxious in meetings. So it wasn't actually working
Mhm.
despite how hard I was trying.
And then, so what did you do to make that transition?
Yeah, I would say it's been gradual. So it's not like,
Right.
one
I wish.
day I woke up and I was an expert communicator who had, everything all together, feeling really confident. I think it really came from a place of experience,
Mhm,
but then also a lot of internal work. This, really working on myself that I don't have anything to prove. I don't have to speak in every meeting. Sometimes it's better if I just listen. Sometimes it's better if someone else speaks.
mhm,
Um, it just, yeah, being more authentic with myself, knowing who I am, really helped me sort of increase my confidence over time that like I don't need to prove anything. And I think, the later I get in my career, especially when I turned 40, I was kind of like, this is it. This is all you get. This is who I am. Like, I don't have anything else to prove. And I was just tired of proving myself. So, yeah, I think now as a leader, I show up a lot more authentically.
yeah,
Although I do have to say, like, not every time.
right,
Sometimes I fall back into old habits, and that's kind of normal. But for the most part, I show up more from who I am as a person and not trying to prove.
right. And so what would be your 3 tips to prepare for a high stakes presentation? What do you do?
Yeah, I think one is preparation. You always
Mhm,
feel more confident when
mhm,
you have prepared.
mhm,
I am careful though, because I tend to over prepare, and that also isn't a good thing.
mhm,
And so I try to kind of get the right level of preparation, if you will. The other thing I do is really positive self-talk
mhm,
before a presentation. So I will say things to myself like, Andrea, this is where you shine. You've got this. You have done this before. You're an expert communicator. Whatever. Sometimes I do a power pose, not often, but sometimes. Anything that really just helps me um, feel sort of deserving to be in the room, confident. I'll also, on the flip side, if I'm feeling a little bit not confident, then I do try and reflect on why that is.
mhm,
So why am I not feeling particularly confident? What am I under the surface telling myself? Like you're going to mess this up. Someone's going to be better than you. You
mhm,
don't know what you're talking about. You're going to be thrown a curveball question.
mhm,
And then I have to then talk myself out of that where I'm like, no, like, how to handle curveball questions. If you don't know the answer, that's okay. So preparation, self-talk. And then when I'm in the actual presentation, I do try and pay attention to my body,
mhm,
which might sound a little bit strange, but I know that if I start to get anxious, or nervous, I start to get hot. I'm like,
mhm,
oh, it's like a little bit too hot. So I get
mhm,
warm. If I get really anxious, I start to get a little bit shaky, which
mhm,
is not good. And so in those moments, when the other person is talking,
mhm,
I really try to take a breath. Uh,
mhm,
and if I can just give myself a couple lines of like, Andrea, you got this, or like, that was tricky. Let's move on.
mhm,
You still have time to salvage this. It's going to be fine. Take a pause, like whatever I can tell myself in those like really quick seconds while someone else is speaking and still be paying attention. I try to get my mental state back to where it's helpful, because a thought is what triggered the anxiety.
Mhm.
And so I try and really quickly, can I counter that thought of like, oh, this isn't going well, or oh my God, I can't believe they asked me that, or I don't think I answered that well. Like I just try and counter it like right away.
Yes, I love those. Those are powerful tips. Amazing. So beginning from preparing, but not over preparing, because I find that when we over prepare, we try to put everything in a box. Like this is how it's gonna go, and it's not the case. And then so if we get veered off, we're gonna get thrown off. So just preparing, but then knowing you have all the tools and resources to be in the moment in case things go differently. Secondly, positive self-talk, right? Going into presentations with a negative, this is going to go awry, this is not going to go well, then you might lead yourself there and manifest and create that. So having positive self-talk, I've got this, my voice matters, and then being in the moment, going into the situation, noticing your body, noticing when you're feeling anxious. And I say this all the people try to avoid it, or they try to suppress those emotions. I love what you said, like when someone else is speaking, give yourself that time to actually acknowledge that feeling inside the body. That is your cue to slow down, give yourself a breath, acknowledge that it's there. Sometimes I'll say, "Oh yeah, I'm nervous." Like I'll say to myself, "I'm nervous right now," and just noticing it. And then when you actually call it out in your mind, then or your body, then it actually dissolves. It actually will neutralize itself, and then transitioning into, "I've got this. Oh yeah, that was uncomfortable, but we'll move. We'll think some. I'm here. It's okay. Be present." So those
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
great.
I do tell myself before presentations too, like, Andrea, you're an expert at winging things. Like you can
Yes.
wing it.
Yes.
You're great at this. Just wing it. And
Right.
like,
Right.
I'm not an expert at it, but just by telling myself like, it's okay, you can wing it. You've winged it before. Like it's,
Yeah.
confidence will trump everything. Like just whatever I can tell myself to just be like, it's fine. Like I can't anticipate everything that will be
Mhm.
asked, or how someone might react. And I do try and anticipate, well, I try and prepare too, that like if something does go awry, right? Like if I truly don't, yeah, I don't know, show up well, that have the right answer, feel like I got put in the hot seat, it's okay to like pause in a conversation and to say like, can we try that again? Or why don't I get back to you with a little bit more information on that? Or I'm not sure I represented that well. Let me kind of come
Mhm.
back to it. So there are things that you can do to also recover, if you will.
Right, to have in your back pocket. So that way you don't have to overcompensate, prove yourself, and you
Yeah.
can be in the moment and be flexible and problem solve and get curious, even if you don't have all the answers. It's
Yeah.
those moments when you go in there and you pretend and you overcompensate and you need to prove, then that's when it gets uncomfortable and things it's difficult to try to bounce back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
I love that. Well, Andrea, that was so powerful, and I appreciate you sharing your experiences. I know that I've certainly felt that way, and I know that our audience also feels this way too. And it's high stakes conversations. You want to do well, and there's a lot at stake, and we want to be able to get to a place where we resolve problems and collaborate with people. And so having the right communication. Uh, is different. It is going to be different when you move up the ranks, when you get to a higher level, and having that using communication as a tool, as
Mm.
your competitive advantage, your strategic advantage, or just as a good leader is important. So I'd like to ask you what I like ask all my guests at the end is what is that one leadership golden takeaway that you want people to remember?
Oh, what is that one leadership golden takeaway? Maybe I'll go back to my coach for a second. So um early in my career, I had a mentor and she told me that I would need to spend money on myself and my career in order to move up the ranks.
Hmm.
Or not necessarily move up, but to have the career I wanted, I would
Mhm.
need to invest in myself. And as a very young sort of green leader, I didn't take well to that. Like I really like I thought, isn't that kind of the company's job to invest in me and to help me become a better leader? Like, or isn't that what professional development funds are for? Or like, I didn't think that it was truly my responsibility.
Mm,
And I also couldn't fathom spending money. Like she was like, you're going to need to spend money on associations and coaches and resourcing and learning and all these things. And I will say, the more money I've spent on myself, the higher my return has been. Like it's so true. Like you need to invest in yourself and not do it alone. Like, you need help. Everyone needs help. And to expect that that would just come from a job, um,
yeah,
that's not true. Like, I hired a coach because I wasn't getting the coaching I needed
yeah,
in my job. And yeah, there's some onus on the company, but really the onus was on me to fill those gaps, to figure out what I needed. And so I've definitely invested in my career. So if I can give one little tidbit of advice is you can never go wrong investing in yourself.
love that. I love that. I mean, it's so true. I'm a solopreneur, entrepreneur, and I know that when I invest in something, then I am going to give it my 100%, 100 to really capitalize on it. And going back to what you're saying, when you are responsible for your own development and leadership and finding the right people, the right resources and investing in that, you're going to get that ROI because you're putting in that money, you're putting in that capital. Then you're going to spend, you're going to definitely have more commitment, more dedication, and then especially if you're picking the people that you want and the skill that you want to take yourself to the next level versus waiting for something to happen, waiting for someone to give that to you.
Yes,
And the
yes,
ROI, yeah, and that's going to propel you faster because you have people that have already been there, done that, experts on your side, and the team that's on your side.
yes, 100%. It's so funny. The sun, just
Yeah.
like as I said that, just
Okay.
like beamed,
Well,
like
Andrea,
spotlighted
you're
me
ready to
here.
shine. That's why. You're ready to shine. You're meant to shine. Well, thank you so much for your time. And I have learned so much, and I appreciate you sharing your story with us. And thank you, audience, for being here. And remember, anytime you have a chance to communicate, you have an opportunity to connect, to inspire, and make a positive difference in the world. I am your sister in flow. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye. Bye, Andrea. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks for joining the conversation today. Are you curious on how you measure up with your ability to speak in flow? Come grab my free self-assessment at https://speakinflow.com/assessment. And I'll see you on the other side.